All right, I'm going to show you how to modify the Crybaby into a base wah. For this modification, we need a 0.068 UF capacitor, a 3K resistor, a 100K potentiometer. This is an audio taper, so a 100K, a 1K potentiometer. This is a linear taper, so B1K, and a double pin, double throw on switch. This is all you really need. I'm going to be using a triple pin double throw, so I have an extra row of lugs to add an LED. A triple pin double throw true bypass foot switch. A 0.1 UF capacitor. And if you're going to be adding LEDs or lights, you're going to need an LED of your color and a 1K resistor. Okay, to start off, I'm going to pull the board out of the housing. Now, I've already unsoldered all the parts that we're going to be removing and replacing, so I'm just going to be pulling them out as we go. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to remove C5, this capacitor right here. All right, yours should look blank like that. And we're going to replace that with our 0.068 UF capacitor. All right, yours should look something like that. Now, you can actually, in the mod right here, if you want to make the GCB100 base Crybaby, this is the only difference, is this capacitor. But I'm going to take it a step further and keep going. Next thing I'm going to remove is R1, the resistor to the left of the capacitor that we just changed. All right, yours should look blank like that. And we're going to replace that with our 3K resistor. All right, so yours should look something like that. Next thing we're going to do is remove R9, this resistor right here, and R5, the one that's tucked in between the inductor and the input right in there. All right, so yours should look blank like that. And there. Next thing we're going to do is get our 1K potentiometer, and I'm going to bend the center lug and the right lug towards each other and push them into each other. So I've bent them towards each other like that. I'm going to give them a little squeeze. So now they're together like that. And we're going to add a 5-inch wire to the left lug. And we're going to add a 5-inch wire to these two lugs. All right, so yours should look something like that. The double lug on the right has a wire, and the lug on the left has a wire. And we're going to stick the other ends of the wires into R9, the bottom resistor that we removed. All right, so yours should look something like that. Next thing we're going to do is get our 100K potentiometer. And this time we're going to bend the left lug and the center lug in on each other. All right, yours should look something like that. And we're going to do the same thing again. We're going to put a wire on the right lug and a wire on our double lug. Okay, yours should look something like that. We have a wire on our double lug and a wire on the right lug. And we're going to stick the other ends of the wire into R5 in that space there where we remove the other resistor. All right, yours should look something like that. We have our 100K potentiometer running into that spot right there. Okay, the mods we just did, this capacitor allows more bass frequency in the signal or the sound, and the resistor, the 3K resistor, adjusts the mid-range to be a little bit wider so it's not so pointed. Our 1K potentiometer adjusts the bass gain, and our 100K potentiometer adjusts the sweep range. Again, you can end the mod right there, but I'm going to take it a step further, and I'm going to make the buffer independent, since a lot of times basses will have an active pickup or an active preamp, so you won't need the buffer. So what I'm going to do is put the buffer on its own independent true bypass switch. So if you're playing passive pickups, you can turn the buffer on. If you have active pickups or an active preamp, you can turn the buffer off. So the first thing I'm going to do is remove C9, this capacitor right here. All right, yours should look blank like that. Next thing I'm going to do is get our 0.1 UF capacitor, and I'm going to bend one lug to the right and one lug to the left, like that. Then I'm going to stick the one that's going down into the bottom hole where that capacitor was. So it should look something like that. All right, the next thing I'm going to do is lift R15, which is this capacitor, this resistor right here, but I'm only going to lift the top side and leave the bottom still soldered on. So like that. All right, then we're going to add, I'm using a blue wire to indicate that it's output. I'm going to add a wire to the top hole of where resistor 15 was. All right, so yours should look something like that. And I'm going to add a green wire to the stem of the capacitor that's coming up like that. I'm going to add a wire right there. All right, yours should look something like that. We have a green wire going to the capacitor and a blue wire going into the top of R15. And this resistor that's sticking up, we're going to add another green wire to that. All right, yours should look something like that. Next thing we're going to do is get our on-off switch. I have a jumper on the two top lugs, like that. Then we're going to take our green wire from the capacitor and we're going to solder that onto the bottom left lug. All right, like that. And then we're going to get our blue wire and solder it to the bottom lug right next to that one. All right, so yours should look something like that. We're going to get our green wire that's going to the resistor, and we're going to solder it to the center lug above the blue wire that we just soldered on. All right, yours should look like that. Now I'm going to put this back in the housing and then we'll finish doing the true bypass mod. All right, now I chose to put my switch on underneath the foot rocker and I put the potentiometers on the right side of the pedal. That's the right side of the pedal. Next thing we're going to do is remove this switch, unsolder the wires or clip them off and remove the switch. And we're going to install our true bypass switch. Again, I have a jumper wire going to the bottom outer lugs. All right, yours should look something like that. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to get our purple wire and we're going to solder that to the center, the center right lug right there. All right, yours should look something like that. The purple wire on the center right lug. And we're going to get our green wire and solder that to the center left lug. All right, yours should look something like that. Purple on the center right, green on the center left. Now we're going to take our double blue wire and solder it to the top right lug. All right, yours should look something like that. Our double blue wire is on the top right lug. And the last wire we're going to solder up is going to be a green wire on the top left lug. And that's going to go to the center left lug on our toggle switch. All right, yours should look something like that. We have our green wire on the top left lug, and that's running to the center left lug of our toggle switch. Okay, that's the base Crybaby mod. We have the buffer on its own independent toggle switch. It's true bypass. We have control knobs for the sweep range and the bass gain. Now, if you want to add LEDs, you're going to have to use the LED of your choice and color and a 1K resistor, and I'll show you how to do that now. Okay, so to add a light, what we're going to do is we're going to add a power wire, and we're going to take it from this lug right here. All right, so yours should look something like that. Then we're going to get on our LED. When you're looking at an LED, the long stem is the positive and the short stem is the negative. So we're going to wire our power cable to the long stem positive. All right, yours should be something like that. Our power line going to the long stem. Next, we're going to get our 1K resistor, and we're going to solder one into the short stem of the LED. All right, yours should be something like that. Our resistor to the short stem of the LED. And the other side of the resistor is going to go to the top center lug, like that. All right, now the very last thing we're going to do is we're going to solder a wire from the center lug to ground. I'm going to take the ground right from the jack here. You can use the inner lug here or the inner lug on this side. They're both ground. Okay, yours should look something like that. We have a wire going from ground to our center lug, and that should do it. Now, if you want to add a light to the buffer side, it would be exactly the same as we did up here. We'll put a ground wire to our center lug and our negative resistor to the bottom lug right there. All right, this is my finalized version. We have a light on our mini toggle switch to show when our buffer is engaged or not. And we have a light that shows when the pedal is engaged. Let's test it out.